In the heart of ancient Rome, when the empire stood at the height of its power, one man dared to challenge the greatest military force the world had ever known. His name was Spartacus, a slave, a gladiator, a warrior who would become the leader of the most famous slave rebellion in human history. This is not the Hollywood version you might know. This is the true story of Spartacus, a tale of courage, strategy, and the unquenchable human desire for freedom. A story that would shake Rome to its very foundations and inspire revolutionaries for over 2,000 years. By the end of this video, you'll understand why this rebellion terrified the Roman Senate, how a band of escaped slaves defeated multiple Roman armies, and what ultimately led to one of history's most brutal suppressions. This is the story that Hollywood got partially right, but history made even more incredible. So let's journey back to 73 BCE to the dusty training grounds of Capua, where our story begins. Chapter 1. The man before the legend. Who was Spartacus before he became a legend? The historical record is frustratingly sparse, but what we do know paints a fascinating picture. Spartacus was born in Thrace, a region that encompasses parts of modern-day Bulgaria, Greece, and Turkey. The Thracians were known throughout the ancient world as fierce warriors, skilled horsemen, and formidable opponents. They were a tribal people, fiercely independent, and constantly resisting the encroachment of larger empires. According to the ancient historian Plutarch, Spartacus was not just a common soldier. He was described as a man of intelligence and culture, more refined than his circumstances would suggest. Some sources indicate he may have served as an auxiliary in the Roman army, a common practice for men from conquered territories. But something happened that changed his fate forever. The exact circumstances remain unclear. Some historians believe he deserted the Roman military. Others suggest he was captured during one of Rome's many campaigns in Thrace. What we know for certain is that Spartacus ended up in the absolute worst place a free man could find himself, the slave markets of Rome. In the Roman world, slavery was the foundation of the economy. Millions of people from conquered territories were forced into servitude. But not all slaves faced the same fate. Agricultural slaves worked the vast estates of the wealthy. Household slaves served in Roman homes. But the slaves destined for the gladiatorial schools faced something different entirely. They were being trained to die for entertainment. Spartacus was sold to Lentulus Baphiatus, the owner of a gladiatorial school in Capua, about 120 miles south of Rome. This was no ordinary school. It was a ludus, a brutal training facility where men were transformed into killing machines for the arena. The gladiatorial games were Rome's most popular form of entertainment, drawing massive crowds who cheered as men fought to the death. Life in the ludus was harsh beyond modern comprehension. The gladiators were kept in cells, chained at night, and subjected to brutal training during the day. They were fed a diet heavy in barley and beans to build bulk and protect vital organs, then forced to fight with weapons that could kill with a single blow. The mortality rate was staggering. Most gladiators didn't survive more than a few fights. But Spartacus was different. He excelled in the arena. Ancient sources described him as a skilled fighter, quick-thinking and powerful. He became a murmillo, a type of gladiator who fought with a sword and large shield, wearing a helmet with a distinctive fish-shaped crest. His success in the arena brought him a measure of fame, but it also brought him face-to-face with a terrible reality. No matter how many times he won, he was still a slave, still property, still trapped in a system designed to work him until he died for the entertainment of others. And that's when Spartacus made the decision that would change history. He would not die in the arena. He would be free, or he would die trying. Chapter 2. The Great Escape. In 73 BCE, Spartacus began planning the impossible. Along with 3 other gladiators, Crixus, a Gaul, and Oenomaus, a fellow Thracian, they organized a conspiracy among the gladiators in the ludus of Batiatus. They would escape, and they would do it in the most audacious way possible. The plan was discovered before it could be executed. An informant betrayed them to the guards. But Spartacus and his co-conspirators acted with lightning speed. Rather than wait to be punished or killed, they launched their escape immediately, even though only about 70 men were ready to join them. The weapons were the first problem. Gladiators were never allowed access to real weapons outside of supervised training, so the rebels improvised. They raided the school's kitchen, seizing knives, meat cleavers, and roasting spits. Then they burst from their cells in a coordinated assault that caught the guards completely off guard. The violence was swift and brutal. These were men trained to kill, and they were fighting for their lives and their freedom. They overwhelmed the guards, seized the weapons stored in the ludus, and burst through the gates into the streets of Capua. But they didn't stop there. As they fled the city, they encountered several wagons transporting gladiatorial weapons to another city for games. The rebels attacked and looted the wagons, finally obtaining proper weapons: swords, spears, shields, and armor. They were no longer just escaped slaves, they were armed and dangerous. The group fled to Mount Vesuvius, the volcano that would later bury Pompeii in 79 CE. In 73 BCE, the mountain was covered with lush vegetation, with natural caves and defensible positions. It was the perfect place to establish a base, and word of the escape began to spread like wildfire through the countryside. This is where something remarkable happened. Spartacus could have simply fled with his small band, perhaps trying to escape Italy entirely. But instead, he did something that terrified Rome to its core. He began to build an army. Slaves from the surrounding estates began deserting their masters and joining the rebels. Shepherds, farm workers, and even some free men who lived in poverty saw in Spartacus something they had never seen before: hope. Here was a man who had challenged Rome and survived. Here was a leader who offered not just freedom, but dignity. Within weeks, Spartacus commanded not 70 men, but several thousand. The rebellion had begun, and Rome was about to learn that it had vastly underestimated what it was dealing with. Chapter 3: Rome's First Response. When news of the escape reached Rome, the Senate's initial reaction was dismissive. This was not a military threat, this was a police matter, a slave uprising that would be crushed quickly and brutally as a warning to others. The praetor Gaius Claudius Glaber was dispatched with approximately 3,000 militia. These were not the legendary Roman legions that had conquered the Mediterranean world. These were local recruits, lightly trained and poorly equipped. The Senate believed they would be more than sufficient to deal with a band of escaped slaves. Glaber located the rebel army on Mount Vesuvius and immediately saw what he believed was a tactical advantage. There was only one path down from the mountain, a narrow trail that could be easily defended. Glaber's strategy was simple. He would blockade the path, starve the rebels into submission, and then capture or kill them at his leisure. It seemed foolproof. But Glaber had made a fatal error. He had underestimated Spartacus. The rebel leader studied the terrain carefully. The path down was indeed blocked, and attacking uphill against defensive positions would be suicidal. But Spartacus noticed something. Wild vines grew in abundance on the slopes of Vesuvius. These vines were strong, flexible, and plentiful. What happened next has become one of the most famous tactical maneuvers in military history. Spartacus ordered his men to weave the vines into ropes and ladders. Then, on a steep cliff face that the Romans had deemed unscalable and therefore left unguarded, the rebels descended in the dead of night. They came down behind Glaber's camp. The Roman militia, confident in their blockade, never saw the attack coming. The rebels struck at dawn, overwhelming the camp with brutal efficiency. Glaber's force was routed, many were killed, and the survivors fled in panic. The rebels captured all the Roman weapons, armor, and supplies. The psychological impact of this victory cannot be underestimated. Spartacus had not just escaped, he had defeated a Roman force in open combat. The news spread throughout southern Italy like lightning. Thousands more slaves deserted their masters and flocked to join the rebellion. Spartacus now commanded an army estimated at 10,000 men. They had defeated multiple Roman forces, captured vast quantities of weapons and supplies, and controlled large portions of southern Italy. What had started as a prison break had become the greatest slave rebellion in Roman history, and and it was still growing. Chapter 4. The Rebel Army. What kind of army had Spartacus created? This was not a disciplined Roman legion. This was a collection of escaped slaves, gladiators, and dispossessed farmers. They came from dozens of different cultures and spoke multiple languages. By all logic, such a force should have been chaotic, disorganized, and easy to defeat. But Spartacus proved himself a military genius. He organized his army along Roman lines, creating units with clear command structures. He appointed capable lieutenants to lead different divisions. Crixus, the Gallic gladiator, commanded a large contingent of Celtic warriors. Oenomaus led the Thracian and Germanic fighters until his death in battle. Castus and Gannicus emerged as capable commanders of their own forces. Training was rigorous. Many of the rebels had no military experience, so Spartacus implemented daily drills and exercises